All right, today we're going to talk about how to subtract rational numbers. Remember that rational numbers, for our purposes, are going to be positive and negative, fractions and decimals. So a lot of this is going to be the same as our notes from the previous class because the rules are generally the same. We're just going to be encountering more subtraction this time. So first we want to put the numbers in the same form, either all fractions or all decimals. And remember, if you have a fraction that makes a repeating decimal, you're going to want to keep that as a fraction because we can't use our calculator with a repeating decimal. So if the signs are the same, we're going to add those numbers together. I'm trying to find a happy medium here and keep the sign. All right, I'll have to do that. And then if the signs are different, you're going to subtract them and you're going to keep the sign from the one that has the greatest absolute value. But we know that that means basically what you have more of. If you have more negatives, your answer is negative. If you have more positives, the answer is positive. All right, so we are going to be using the scoreboard method, which is essentially what we just wrote up here. This is the scoreboard method. Remember to have common denominators if you're using fractions and line up decimals if you are doing the decimal operations out on paper and not on your calculator. Let's dive right in. So let's look at number one. They're both fractions, so I'm going to leave them fractions. Could you change them to decimals? Sure. But the general rule is if they give you all fractions in the question, your answer should be a fraction. So first let's change the second fraction to an improper fraction. I'm going to make that 5/2. Both of these have a negative in front of them, a subtraction or a negative. Those are the same thing. This second one needs a denominator of 8. So I have negative 5/8, and then I want to have 8 in the denominator of my second fraction. And to get that, I'm going to do like times 4, right? You can multiply by 4/4, which is just 1. So 5 times 4 is 20. We're going to keep the denominator the same, and then in the numerator, we're going to use the scoreboard. So if you remember the scoreboard here, I have a -5 and a -20. So since they're both negative, we just add them together and keep them negative because that means the negative team won by 25 points. And this is going to be your answer. If you would like to change that to -3 1/8, I would also accept that as a correct answer, but you're going to see less and less of the mixed numbers and more improper fractions as you continue on in math. Let's try number 2. Number 2 has 2 fractions and a decimal. So I know that you all think decimals are easier to use because you can use a calculator. But in this case, if we did 5, well, I don't want to put my line there through the subtraction, but this 5/6, if I wanted to change that to a decimal, I could take my calculator and do 5 divided by 6. But this decimal is 0.8333. It repeats. So we don't want to use a decimal for that. It would be easy to make this a fraction. So let's change this to a fraction. Let's make it 5 25/100, which is 5 1/4, which is 21/4. All right, so I've got -23/4, and let's make this a 24th. I can make that a 24th by multiplying the numerator and the denominator both by 4. So I have -20 here. And then this one, I also want to have, it's adding, so I'm going to add 24. To get 24, I'm going to have to multiply by 6. So in my calculator, I'll do 21 times 6, and I get 126. All right, so my answer is going to be keeping the denominator the same and setting up a scoreboard for the numerators. So for the scoreboard, I have 23 negatives, 20 negatives, and 126 positives. So altogether, I have 43 negatives and 126 positives. So the positive team definitely wins. So my answer is going to be positive. But I want to find the difference. Like this will tell me how much the positive team won by. So I'll do 126 minus 43. And I get 83, and this is going to be my answer. I know it's positive because I had more positives than negatives, so my positive team won. All right, moving right along. I've got this problem, number 3, that has both decimals and fractions, so I can choose whether to use decimals or fractions. In this case, This is an easy fraction to change to a decimal. -3/4 is going to be -0.75. If you're not sure in your calculator, you can do 3 divided by 4 and you're going to get 0.75, or you can by hand divide 4 into 3 and you still get 0.75. So I have -2.3, -3.08, and you can do plus -0.75. And in the scoreboard, look what happens. All of these numbers have a negative in front of them. All of them are going to go on this side of my scoreboard. Because remember, when we're selecting the number, we're including the sign right before it. And for all of them, those are negatives. So the negative team is definitely going to win. And I can use my calculator here. I'm going to add 2.3 and 3.08 and 0.75 together to find out that it is 6.13. I'm just going to add it again in my calculator because I feel like I wasn't paying that close attention when I was putting it in. I got distracted. Nope, that's right. They're all negatives. Negative team wins. They get all the points. Ta-da! And the last one, we have a decimal and a fraction. Again, if it's easy to change the fraction to a decimal, you can. If it's a repeating decimal, do not do that. Use it as fraction. So 3/8, I can just do 3 divided by 8 in my calculator. And 3/8 is the same as 0.375. So I've got -3.8 minus 0.375. If I'm doing my scoreboard here, both of these numbers have a negative in front of it, so the negative team is going to win. And we're going to add these together to find out how much they win by. But remember, your answer is negative because the negative team is going to win. And I get -4.175. There you have it, guys. Thanks for watching.